All right. Welcome to another episode of the Bring the Juice podcast. I'm your host, Frank Dalena. Today we are in Arizona. I got John Middlekauff on.
First we gonna rock, then we gonna fold, then we let it pop, don't let it go.
He is also a podcaster. John, welcome to Bring the Juice real quick. I'm sure it's nice to be on the other side of the table.
It feels good. It feels really good. I text a mutual buddy of ours, and he just simply said, "You're a star." So I'm excited to be here.
Hey, we're getting after it. A couple Coors Lights on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Can't be too mad about it.
No, you can't.
So, podcaster, you've been involved in different types of journalism, writing articles, reporting. You're with, talking to Colin Cowherd. You were a scout at one point for the Eagles. Let's start with just at what point did you go from, I got occupations, I'm going to be a scout, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and going, I'm all in on podcasting, all in on the radio gig, the whole shit?
Yeah, I would say I've had different points in time in my life where things have changed. I really wanted to work in football. I got to do that with college and in the NFL. And, it comes to a screeching halt when, the head coach gets fired or let go. And then you got to kind of look in the mirror and you go, what do I want to do? And then you get a radio career that kind of gets off and running. And you kind of in the NFL, you start I dealt with the Raiders, and I was doing the post game, and it kind of got ugly. They wanted me to be positive. I can be a little negative. So, we butted heads. And so I've been, I was fired twice by the time I was 30.
Wow.
And I would say most people, in my family, I grew up, my dad was a tomato farmer. In most industries, you get fired. It's you're late, you're a bad worker.
Right.
In sports or even in radio, some of these contract jobs, it's a little different, right? And so I think some people were like, man. And the first time it happened to me in the NFL, when Chip Kelly came in, it was I'm a failure.
Right.
Second time, it was much easier to kind of catapult to where I wanted to go. Now, I didn't necessarily know either time.
Yeah.
But it's the best thing that ever happened to me twice. And, in 16, we started podcasting.
That's early in the podcast game.
It is, but actually, it felt late at the time.
Yeah.
Now looking back, it definitely was ahead of the curve.
Totally.
But it's just one of those things that I would have probably held on for radio as long as I could, and that's obviously dying slowly on the vine. So it worked out pretty well.
Do you have any background in that? Did you go to college for that specifically, or did you just kind of fall into place?
Yeah, it just kind of fell into place.
You're good at it. That's
I've been told to shut up my whole life from my family, so it comes naturally to talk. It's just one of those things that sometimes you just end up. Some people, I've met people along the way, I'm sure you have too, that are destined to do something.
Right.
And you talk to them and they I was going to do this when I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. Right. Whether it's an athlete, whether it's when I worked in the NFL, Howie Roseman, he's I was going to be a GM at 7 years old. He was telling people that.
I love that.
And I worked with people with scouts that were this is what I wanted to do at a young age, even when I was playing college football. I was not necessarily like that.
Right.
But, and same with radio or talking or podcast, sometimes you just kind of have, I have limited gifts in life. There's not many other things I could do. I mean, that was part of it. Why I wanted to work in football, because I remember being at Cal Poly thinking I don't think I can work for a bank. I don't know. I'm going to suck at this. How am I going to survive? How am I going to sell insurance?
Yeah.
So you just try to find what you really like, and then sometimes that's probably what happens to more people. Organically, just kind of leads you to an area.
Well, I mean, you said it best too. One, everybody's got different talents. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Two, it's crazy the amount of people that might be good at bank or might be good at all kinds of shit, but they can't talk, have a conversation, steer a conversation. It's one thing to be a host of a podcast or a show versus being a guest on a host or a guest on a podcast.
Yeah, for
or
sure.
A show. Definitely a different vibe. Definitely got to have, I don't want to call it, it does become talent, but a lot of it's organic. I was a fucking ag business major. I mean, I got no background in this shit.
So was I.
Hey, good.
It's the only way I get into school.
Need farmers these days, right?
For hell yeah.
But, the reason I think I got good at talking to people, growing up on an onion farm, I had to load trucks I'd get on the forklift, I'd take the pallets of onions, I'd load them on a truck, I'd have to shake the truck driver's hand, they'd be going everywhere in the fucking world.
Yeah.
Maine, Florida, Canada, Utah, it doesn't freaking matter. You ask them, hey, how do you want your truck? How do you want it loaded? What do you want it? There's certain laws where you have to have a certain amount of weight or not too much weight on your truck. So being a fourth grade kid and having to shake a grown man's hand 10 times a day every summer for year after year after year, one, you learn how to shake a hand, not like a wuss bag like there is too many these days.
For sure.
But also you understand, hey, I'm gonna put my big boy pants on right now and talk like a big boy, look a man in the eye, be direct, get my point across on things. And I think that's just developed along with my athletic career of just, hey, being a good communicator is a good tool to have in your toolbox as a football player, as a freaking JV baseball player. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you could communicate on the field, a coach sees that as an asset. So, not to go full circle on the whole thing, but now that you're in the position of the podcasting, talk about your podcast a little bit. I know you got 3 and Out. You got this Go Low one.
Yeah, I mean,
where are you going?
Well, I think back to what you were just saying is that, life for the most people is kind of indirectly or directly about sales. Mm-hmm. And really what you're doing, what I do is just kind of selling yourself.
You have to.
You're
your brand.
And when I was in college, I remember thinking like, I never want to work in sales. And even when I got to the NFL, like seeing the people that had to sell tickets or at Fresno State, I was like, I don't want to do that. And you realize like that's most of life, no matter what you do, whether you're the head coach in college, whether you host a podcast, whether you run a business, like you're always selling. Mm-hmm. And that is, it sounds sometimes kind of hollow and fake, but right. I think it's the most valuable skill probably in America. The ability to sell whatever whether it's your vision for your program, whether it's your product, whether you run a podcast and are entertaining. Yeah. So I think that is, when I was at Fresno State, a buddy of mine from high school, Guy Haberman, hosted a show for Chris Pacheco at Fresno.
Right.
And I lived with him and another buddy that was on the basketball team and became a basketball coach. He ended up going to the Bay Area and hosting a radio show. So when I got fired in the NFL, I started going on with him.
Right.
And I started being a guest. And then the guy that ran the radio show really liked me because I didn't give a shit. I was just kind of like, I was blasting people. Yeah, well, exactly. And then we ended up getting a radio show that, like I said, ended up getting canceled when the Raiders got mad at me. And then that's how we started a podcast, like kind of a Bay Area centric that's now kind of turned in very 49er heavy.
Yeah.
Because football's king.
Absolutely.
And
say it again.
Yeah. So that's, kind of got the ball rolling. And then from there, Cowherd and I started a podcast probably in 2018. He's like, hey, I want you to have one for me. So I was like,
right.
Yeah, shit. So we do 3 and Out. And then
how tell me about that relationship. When did you first get in the room with Cowherd? Because he's kind of on the Mount Rushmore of guys that have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best in the biz.
Yeah.
I would say I think we met through Twitter.
Wow.
Probably in like 2014, 2015. Once I got out of the NFL, I started a Twitter account.
Yeah.
And, former NFL scout. He's buddies with Andy Reid.
Okay.
So I've never asked him this, but I would imagine he asked about me or whatever. And then he just started having me on his radio show at ESPN. Mm-hmm. So then we just started talking a lot. And then I can't even remember. Somehow we started texting. We just kind of became buddies. Then I started doing the podcast before I actually ever met him in person, which was probably like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
And then he started the volume that now, Draymond Green, Colin, myself, a bunch of other people. And obviously I just went over with him.
Yeah.
So it's been good.
The volume, I mean, what's the vision there? There's so many different platforms now of hubs of podcasts, hubs of shows. Is it eventually a thing where the more athletes, the more shows, the better? Do you want to keep it inclusive?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to him. I mean, I
you just work there essentially then?
Yeah, I mean, we have a good business partnership and, I'm involved heavily, obviously, in terms of the more successful it is, the more successful we all are.
Right.
I think he's been very, he just doesn't hire anybody. Draymond has been just a pretty incredible move, right?
I mean, it's changed the game almost.
Yeah, he's a pretty special individual for just a guy on the most famous team who just doesn't give a shit and will talk. And he's also just a polarizing player.
Right.
And so Richard Sherman, obviously came on last year, kind of same type deal, right? Kind of the Draymond of the NFL.
Yeah.
It's a little different because Richard's retired now. Now, he's doing the Amazon stuff. I mean, Draymond's in the heat of he's fucking playing LeBron right now, right?
Right now.
Literally. So, I mean, it's just been, it's very cool. And now Colin is the bus driver. Obviously, he's the lead dog. So it's just like, without him, it wouldn't exist. I mean, Draymond could have started it, but my thing and the success of 3 and Out, it's all, I owe it to him.
Right.
Platform, the distribution, the whole thing.
It's difficult, and I've kind of voiced this to people. I don't know if you've gone through this. I'm fresher in the game. This will be episode 90 for me. I do one a week, so I'm still rather fresh in the whole thing. had some early momentum, but people come to me like, hey, why don't you go get Tom Brady on the pod? Why don't you get Michael Jordan on the pod? I think people don't understand, like, those guys, you got to build your way up to get to that point, and to get in those rooms, to get in that text message chain with whoever you need to coordinate something like that. It's harder when, I played college football. That's great. But you look at guys like Bustin' with the Boys, where you got a Will Compton and Taylor Lewan, who have decorative NFL careers. They're kind of, they were the face of the Titans for a little bit there in their own unique way. They already have a following.
Taylor was. Will's. I'm kidding. I like Will. I like this guy.
But, like, you know what I mean? Like, they got this platform, and it's like, oh shit, let's just start some microphones all of a sudden. Richard Sherman at the same time. Like,
well, you can't. I mean, like Richard or Draymond or those guys, like they're playing a different ball game,
right?
And that's like one of the things. Like 3 and Out. Like I don't do that many interviews.
Yeah.
I've had on Coach Reed before. I've had on different people at the combine, but for the most part, like, it's just me talking.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is, it's just, I'm just giving my opinions unfiltered.
When when you're starting to create your personal identity of, hey, people are tapping in to see you, John, basically.
Yeah.
Do you have, kind of boundaries you set of the do's and don'ts, things I want to steer away from? Like, I don't want to get too political on this side. I don't want to get too religious on this side. Or do you just say, hey, whatever comes to mind, I don't give a shit?
Yeah, I say for the most part, I think in 2023 moving forward, and it's been like this for several years, and I think Barstool is a good example of this. It's kind of like raw and unfiltered is what people want.
Absolutely.
They don't want fake bullshit.
Well, that's what podcasts are so great now.
Well, exactly. So just be yourself. I also, politics in general, I obviously use, I guess, ideas and, things I believe when it comes, part of the NFL, money is a huge part of it. So it's like you end up talking about financial theories and the way you view life. So it kind of comes out. But like in terms of like every day, I'm not hammering home social things.
No,
it's why I think it's why I think so much of the media is dying is they can't help to tell you what they believe. And it's like, I got news for you. Not everyone believes like you do.
Yeah.
So when you force it, like, and I come from a world where I don't give a shit what you think. Like, do whatever you want.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I've been friends with people all over the fucking world.
Yeah.
In football, you see it.
Right.
You meet people from all over the place.
Every avenue of life, every corner, everything, every background.
And it never really,
No.
in my experience, now obviously things became much more polarizing these last 6-7 years, but things have always been. My dad used to always say, like, people always think like now's the craziest. He's like,
right.
There was a World War II, there was a World War I, there was a Great Depression, there was Vietnam. Like,
right.
It's like whenever you're living in the time, it feels like the craziest, but people always feel like that at the time. It's just not always necessarily true. And I think today, like, you could argue we've never been better.
Right.
Life's pretty good for the most part,
Yeah.
relative to like you ask someone's great grandparents about like what the 1920s were like,
No, it's pretty
or
shitty.
like when your son went off to World War II and did not come back.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, think about the things we complain about right now.
It's embarrassing.
It's a joke, and that's where. But a lot of people think like that, and I think sometimes the media, who like lives on Twitter,
Yeah.
can get in this weird spot, and it's why so many of them at the big conglomerates feel like they've never had less juice, and that's why like a guy like Colin is so unique, who's worked at these big things, who's pivoted over to Fox, who created this because he sees, like Colin, the thing I respect the most. He's so successful, but he has this like entrepreneurial spirit,
right?
Where like he didn't need to start the volume. He's got more money than he needs to. Like he did this out of like a passion and knowing, and like he's good and likes business. That's why to me, like I've been very fortunate to be able to work with him because I always listened to him because the way he talked about sports was unlike anyone.
Me too.
That talked
Seriously.
about it. So it's like. And I think he resonates, and I've always told him this, like whenever you go to a party or a wedding or whatever, you meet people like a 60-year-old guy that's like the CEO of his company, but you also like his 20-year-old kid that's like a sophomore in college at Arizona State. They both like him, and that's kind of unique because sometimes usually the guy your dad likes is not always the guy you like. So when you can cross all those different demos, it's not easy to do.
It's not easy to do at all. And I personally, I love that fact about him. And I've tried to utilize that in my game. And I think that I was the only white boy wide receiver at Fresno State. So I understood, I got a real good taste of different types of backgrounds, cultures, whether you're from the Bay, LA, Texas, the corner of Florida, it doesn't matter. At the same time, I grew up on an onion farm. I'm a country boy.
You guys had a little different budget than when I was there. We weren't going to Florida.
Hey, I wasn't going into it. They went 2 miles away to get me. But they, you realize, and you kind of brushed on it earlier, but like, I don't care about your personal beliefs, what your viewpoints are on certain things. If you're a good person and you don't affect my life in a negative aspect, or you're not trying to ruin me necessarily, I'm good with you, man. Just be, if you're nice to me and I'm nice to you, I'm good with it. You don't got to get into the personal beliefs and who's right, who's wrong, this is good, this is bad. And I think, especially in today's day and age, you mentioned it, Twitter's but
I don't think society's like that.
It isn't.
You get off the internet, everyone's nice, everyone's friendly.
It's some Twitter bullshit.
Someone might cut you off or whatever, you're pissed off, or just says something like bumps into you at the store.
Right,
but for the most part, like,
everyone's
you just go outside, you have no clue what anyone thinks, and most people are friendly to other people.
Absolutely.
That's why, like, social media clearly is very, very powerful right now.
Yes.
But I also think it doesn't parallel the way like real life is.
Well, you got to utilize it as an asset for an industry like we're in right now, because obviously the more clicks you have, the more chance you are of, getting a bigger sponsorship deal, getting more people engaged in your product or whatever it might be. But at the same time, and I don't know about you, but like, I have tried to steer away from turning into a clickbait type thing. I don't want to be the guy who has I don't want to put athletes down for more interactions on my podcast. That's just, maybe that's an internal compass I have that I started on early, and I'm keeping it at that. But, as you see how this game grows, you look at some controversial shit, that's what's got all the clicks right now.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a gray area there. There's a thin line. Like you said, you want to be raw about it. And to be able to be in the position you are, I think a lot of people are chasing that. I get hit up all the time. Hey, I want to start a podcast, blah, blah, blah. Guys barely get past, guys barely buy microphones, and then they call it. Me being young in this game, you've been a little vetted in it at this point. Was there a day where you said, because I know you mentioned everything's kind of led to this point, but you got to live your life. You got to bring in income and stuff like that. Do you, and you can get into this as much as you like, but at what point did you say, hey, I can make a living for a grown-ass man on podcasting? Was there a certain deal you had, or is it a package, or how's that work?
I mean, I've been able to survive really pretty quickly once I started doing it. I would say the last 3 or 4 years, I'm 38, so probably once I got to about 35,
you look great.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I realized like it could really be something big.
Yeah.
But like, I had a lot of friends that I went to school with, Cal Poly, that, when I graduated college, like the 07, 08, I graduated a 5-year guy, but some of them graduated 07, the recession, whatever happened. But then right after that, a lot of the, like the tech companies boomed.
Right.
So a lot of them got in early, with Oracle, Salesforce, whatever, and started making huge money.
Wow.
And just like anyone in the Bay Area, if you got in at the right time, and, you start working in football, as a GA at Fresno State, I was making a scholarship check.
Yeah,
so you're just paid no different than a player scholarship check. And then in the NFL, my first job paid $25,000. And I don't think up until 13, when I would have been like 28, 29, like I was like 50 grand. So you just start going, you knew the guys at the top were making a lot of money, but it was hard to get there. And you see some of your friends all easily make a couple $100,000, like living well, buying places. You're like, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And then I was lucky enough to kind of see the big picture and just kind of drive through it, because there are times when you can go like, is this worth it?
Right.
And I think it's very, very difficult. One advice a lot of successful people give, and I do believe it's true, when you do something you like to do, it's much easier to do it, because everything that you do in life, even if you like it, it's going to bother you, right? You could be Tom fucking Brady or Peyton Manning. Certain things drove them nuts about football, even though they were addicted to football, right? Or Bill Belichick or Andy Reid or Jeff Bezos or whoever. Right. But like when you like doing it, it's easier to like, okay, I've got to do this on Saturday. Where the majority of people are like, I'm not doing this Saturday, Sunday. And I don't even blame them. Yeah. Like you hate what you do, like whatever. But that limits your ability. And then the older you get to try to like make a change, because kids come, mortgages come, life comes, it's harder to pivot. So the faster,
it's fucking expensive too.
I would not, like, the only reason I'm here doing this and been able to do like make a living off being a full-time, like I meet people a podcaster.
Right.
You know, and I say it like with pride now.
Yeah.
Is because I kind of started, you know, and it really started through football, which gave me my credibility to start just being a radio host and then a podcaster from the jump.
Yep.
Make nothing in my 20s and just kind of get along. And also had parents who, dad was a farmer, my mom, you worked forever. I grew up in Davis at the state capitol, who just supported doing something like, wait, what do you want to do?
Right.
You know, you'd be a recruit. You want to be a scout in the NFL? Like, it's just not, you don't know anyone. It's not like my dad was assistant coach. You know, it just, we didn't know those people.
No.
So, you know, it's a huge, without my parents' support, it wouldn't have, that definitely would have been possible. Just them like never saying like, this is stupid, get a normal job.
Right.
You know, like sell insurance, like, you know, all the people we, you know,
normal.
we see at the store, all their kids are doing. And like, that's first and foremost starts there, like with a support system of like, you can do it. Like, cool. Like, can we come to a game?
Yeah.
You know,
It's fun.
We'll drive your car out to Philly, 'cause that sounds cool. It's like, you know, hope I do that for my kids.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's you mentioned Philly. Now let's talk about the scout life. I have yet to have anybody who has any scouting experience on the pod. Give me a week of an NFL scout, because I know you're traveling, you're looking certain times.
It depends.
Depends on the time.
Are you working like when I left Fresno State to go to the Eagles, I worked in the office.
Okay.
So a guy
you weren't in the field.
Yeah, born and raised in Davis, went to Cal Poly, 2 years at Fresno, off to Philadelphia. You know, it was kind of crazy. You know, it's like and I'm not a player. I ain't getting $1 million. I'm getting $25,000. Don't know a soul. Go out to the Eagles with Deshaun Jackson, Shady McCoy, Andy. And it was like, this is kind of crazy. And it was intense. But I worked in the office for the first 2 years as kind of my first year. No different than what I did at Fresno. You kind of do everything.
Right.
From food runs to picking up players at the airport to going to grab their playbook to writing up players to helping the GM do lists to getting screamed at for who knows what to helping assistant coaches to, you know, printing out the weather, you know, injury report. It's a little different in the pros than college, like with the injury report every, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You just kind of you're just trying to keep your head above water and survive.
Right.
College was a little easier in the sense, just a little less, your team's your team.
Yeah.
You know, there's no like adding guys throughout the season.
Cuts, free
now
agency.
kind of, you know, now it's way crazier.
Yeah.
But like then it was, you know, the 100 guys in your roster, 100 guys in your roster, coaches are coaches, you know, it's just, it was a little less crazier in like 08, 09, but like the NFL, I remember thinking it was crazy. It's just intense, you know, and it's like, I'm sure as a player, you know, the losses, you just like, oh my God, dread going in, you know?
Oh, I'm sure.
And the wins, it's like, oh, this is going to be such an awesome Monday. You know? So that's the one thing that it was hard to handle. Like the ebb and flow of that, which I think it's weird. Like coaches are crazy.
Yeah.
Like they are a crazy breed.
Different breed.
And it's like they kind of get numb to that. You know, because they don't get that excited with the wins for a split moment, maybe an hour after the game of beer. But like you see them the next day, they ain't like doing cartwheels down the hallway.
They're pissed off sometimes.
Yeah. So it's like the one thing that I remember being in the office and going to practice all the time. And I'm sure it's no different at Fresno State too. It's like when a guy goes down, that feeling of like it's different. It's like guy kind of gets rolled up on, shakes it off, and like guy he ain't getting up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
It's kind of quiet.
Especially when it's one of your really good players.
It's kind of that Friday Night Lights Boobie Miles moment a little bit. Where you're just
and I don't think people realize it like happens a lot. You know,
so
now
much.
and you know in the NFL, probably you know definitely no different in college. It just depends who. It's a different feeling, but I don't care who you are when you're laying there. It's like everyone stops. But if it's like, oh my, is that? Like, oh my God.
What number's that? That looks like an ACL.
Yeah, that's the thing that I have a lot of respect for. Like I couldn't handle that, you know. Like and part of like what I do now, like I control everything. Like you never control everything in life, but like that feeling in the NFL too, they get so numb to it. Like next guy, call this guy, bring these workouts tomorrow, and it's just like it's just a cycle.
You're a number.
It's just a cycle.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So being, you know, the recent was the NFL draft, and before that was the combine. Is from a scout's perspective, which I know you were in the office, but you know the game.
I did the West Coast my third year.
So is draft night one of the draft? Were you ever in the big room where it's hey, who we picking type thing, or do you at least know what the vibe was in there?
Yeah, I mean, my first 2 years, I was in charge of the boards throughout the year.
Okay.
Not the draft board, but the personnel boards, helping with the draft boards. And we had a pretty tight-knit room when I was in Philly. I think they've expanded it. But, like, you go in and out. And that first round, it was like we were pretty close-knit. And then as the thing goes, doors are open. Everyone's eating, kind of going in and out.
Right.
But my third year when I did the West Coast, there were players on the board that you want to draft or you don't want to draft. And that was one thing that happened to me is I had basically the entire Pac-12. It was the WAC then, but the Mountain West, all the way to El Paso to Colorado West.
Yeah.
So I had a pretty cool area.
That's a pretty awesome.
Yeah, but it's
area.
big. So
there's a lot of teams.
Like my buddies that do the SEC, it sounds like everything's far, but everything's like 3 hours away, 2 hours away.
Totally.
You probably drove
driving.
You drove farther today than a lot of those guys do, and going from I just went from Alabama to Atlanta. To me, that sounds like you're crossing like 7 states. Like, no, it was like 2.5 hours. Or I went from Tallahassee to Auburn. If you go from, UCLA to Fresno, I mean, that might take you, depending on traffic, it could be 5 hours. Who knows?
Very much.
It's a long way.
Always.
So you just, that was a really cool experience. But I remember in the draft meetings, by then I was pretty, I wouldn't say cocky, but I was like confident, like I had been elevated. I was doing a good job. Like I worked for the GM. So even though Andy had just lost his job, I had that chip.
Right.
But in a draft meeting, I was just kind of why I think I'm a successful podcaster. I was just saying like I thought. Like Matt Barkley cannot play here.
Right.
And then Chip Kelly, who I think fucking might have been taking a nap back there, kind of comes to. Matt Barkley had beat them at Oregon, at USC.
So he took it personal almost.
And even the game I think they lost to him, the USC lost to him, I think Barkley had played really well against him. He liked him. We ended up drafting him. And then, it just wasn't. It just was like, I'm not going to be here long. Pretty sure they just gave that guy a lot of money.
What is you kind of mentioned it before the pod, we were chopping it up, but like, is there any, and obviously, a guy who's a guy who's a shoe-in freak of nature, middle linebacker from Alabama, who has all the accolades, all the physical attributes, and he balls out. He's not going to have an issue. He's going to go top 5. But what are some deal breakers you would say from your experience of like, hey, this guy, it's a red flag. We're going to maybe not draft him as high, or maybe we're going to let him go a little bit. You see if we get him in a later round.
I think it just depends on your team, who you have on your team, where you're at kind of in your process. Because like the last couple of years, the Eagles' character has been a really big deal. And they've drafted like it, right? Devontae Smith, Heisman Trophy, super high character guy. Landon Dickerson, offensive lineman, super high character guy. And then Jalen Hurts, super high character guy. Absolutely. And they've just kind of built this squad around like these high level guys.
Right.
And then this year, it's like Jalen Carter, who was in the car in another car, I guess they were racing on a night like after the party for their back-to-back national championships. And, a dude died. And he had already had red flags about immaturity and stuff like that. And the dude obviously left the scene. Yeah. So it's just right away teams. And this all came out at the combine day one.
Yeah.
So it was like, people were like, what? So that whenever you get information that aren't known on a guy, it's one thing like, hey, it turns out this isn't fair, but I'm just going to use like Bryce Young, super high character check, or Will Anderson. He got like a drunk in public his freshman year, and that came out. No one knew about it. It's like, whatever. Low, dumb moment. No one even cares.
Right.
Or like in high school, he got caught with a beer and like he got a ticket. You're like, no. But the Jalen thing, he had already had red flags, and that happened. The Eagles are just like, we are really close. We have a group of his own teammates, so they take, it's still risky, but they go, we have the infrastructure. Whereas people are like, why didn't the Falcons take him to the Lions? Well, maybe they feel like we're not where we need to be like around him to handle that. So like to me, character can be anything from like just being someone, he doesn't really listen to coaches.
Yeah.
He does not take coaching well. You're like, well, is this something because the coach that was coaching him was not good?
Yeah.
Like, is that on the player, or is like the player kind of high level and realize this guy's an idiot? Or like, actually that guy's pretty good. He's coached for Belichick, he's coached for Pete Carroll, and he's won multiple national championships as an assistant coach around. We take that guy's word very highly, and it's actually on the kid. Yep. So it's a lot of stuff that most businesses, it's very black and white. You quantify, right? We're making money, we're losing money. We're getting listeners, we're not getting listeners. We're selling this many products, we're not. Judging someone's character is very hard.
Yeah.
And that's why when you draft people, which ultimately you're drafting, when drafting players, but like you're drafting the person, What's he like? Kyler Murray's a good example, right? We're in Arizona. His talent for a tiny guy is incredible.
It's insane.
He's probably a top 5 fast guy in the NFL. His arm is elite. He's accurate. He's just, when he's on, he can kick anyone's ass in the league.
Yep.
But like clearly, like, does he love studying football? And for some positions, like if you're a wide receiver, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
run your slant.
But if you're the quarterback,
you better know your shit.
I remember Carson Palmer said, I remember asking him like after he was done playing, I was like, what do you miss about being in the NFL? He's like, I miss the pressure every day as a starting quarterback walking into the building and knowing like it's kind of all on me. Like that's very inspiring. Like the pressure on these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's like they're held to the standard of like the coach, and they make, even though coaches now make $15 million, they make triple that.
Yeah.
So it's just really, really intense. So quarterbacks are held to a higher standard than, a defensive lineman or whatever.
Sure.
But still, like that stuff matters. When you look at the all-pro teams in the NFL, I would say most of them are like pretty impressive guys, not getting in trouble. It's just too intense of a sport. The training now is less about like never practice less, so a lot's on you.
Yeah.
Like Nick Bosa is a good example. He doesn't come really to the 49ers off season. And for some players, like that's kind of a red flag. To him, they're like, him and Joey are grinding in Florida.
Yeah.
And he came in last year, hadn't been around really beside the one mandatory OTAs, came like shredded.
Yeah.
And by like the second week,
He's taking care of business.
Trent Williams, who's going to the Hall of Fame, is like, yeah, I think this is the best pass rusher I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like in training camp. So certain guys, like the level of like focus, like, and I've seen it with a lot of the Niners guys, George Kittle, Fred Warner, like, and they're some of the best at their position because they're locked in. I ran into Travis Kelce at the golf course a couple weeks ago. And I went up to him, I said, hey, I used to work for Coach Reed. We started BSing a little bit. And football came up like within probably less than 5 minutes of the conversation. He's like, yeah, we got to go out to work with Mahomes here next week. And then we got OTAs. I remember texting Coach Reed. I'm like, Travis is a locked in dude.
Yeah.
And you look at like Travis and his brother Jason, like they're going to the Hall of Fame for a reason. This is not, and Travis feels a little bit more like a fun, he's not married or whatever, having a good time. But he is not screwing around.
There's a time to work and a time to play, and he understands that.
Yeah, and there's just, I think football, I've said this for a long time now, it's kind of like Wall Street on grass because you factor in the money, the pressure, and it's like the cream really separates itself. And it's why so many guys, what's cool about the sport too, and you play with some of these guys, like you can be a 7th round pick and be a starter by year 1. You can be an undrafted free agent and have an 8-year career. You can, like, you don't, just because you're drafted 50, you get more money off the jump.
Yep.
But by like, I would say, depending, I mean, it's probably different certain places, but because if you suck, you'll give a guy a little longer if your team sucks.
Right.
But like if your team is decent or good, that clock starts rolling pretty quick. Like maybe give you a year, but like you better be ready to roll going in your second year. Like if you ain't playing well, like our 5th rounder is better than you. See ya.
Yeah.
And that's society's a lot like that, right? Like you either produce or you don't. And like, yeah, you might have gone to Harvard or you might have gone to Stanford or whatever, but like I know a lot of guys from state schools crushing it. When I grew up, it's harder now.
Amen to that, brother.
When I grew up, like a lot of my family friends that had successful, like they started their own, but didn't even graduate high school.
Yeah.
It's harder to do that like in modern times.
Times have changed now. I mean,
but now it's kind of shifting back. Like, well, I don't even know.
Go to YouTube University. Who gives a shit?
100%. So, and football's always been like that. Like Brock Purdy's a good example. Like they've already kind of moved off Trey Lance because they got this guy he's Mr. Irrelevant.
I know.
Because right in training camp, they started, God, this guy's pretty good. And they had given $2 million to the backup. And by the end of training camp, Kyle's like, we're taking that guy over the guy we gave $2 million to. Because you can earn it.
Yeah.
Just like you're doing this podcast. If it's good, it might take, you never know if it's going to take a year, 5 years.
Right.
That's the difference of like, in sports, there's like a finite amount of time, right?
That's the thing. You're on a clock.
You're on a clock because the body, I mean, if you have a 10-year career, you're a legend. Hell, you might have 4 or 5 years to take advantage of it. Most industries, you got a runway. And you can't people have like, what are your aspirations? Like, I don't know. I mean, things change so constantly.
Right.
Like, I'll just do whatever I have to do to keep rolling the way it's kind kind of pointing. But I think it's harder now than ever to in any industry to be like, this is where I want to be in 5 years. How can you even, how do you even know that?
You got to grind right now, put food on the table today. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you mentioned it, well, 2 things. One, yes, there's an absolute, in sports, it's a ticking time bomb. You're on a clock. That's both, are you in your prime still? You get injured now. I mean, that might be it. Because you get injured, the guy comes in behind you, starts kicking ass. You're old news all of a sudden. It's an effed up thing.
And then you got to go to a new place and kind of start from scratch.
You're old news, though. And it's like, I think now we're seeing it, especially with that COVID year. You got quarterbacks coming out from the draft where they're 25 years old, and everyone says
a bunch of them were this year.
And everyone's like, "Oh, they're so good." And it's like, dude, Lamar Jackson's what, 26 years old?
Yeah,
he's got an MVP under his belt.
Sam Darnold is just turned 25.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he's been
in the league 5 years.
There's some crazy ass stats out there about it, and it might not mean much to people. And I understand, like, your rookie year is your rookie year, but at the same time, first of all, it gives you a little bit of a tip of your hat to a guy like Sam Darnold, where like this guy's already bounced around a little bit, and he's going into what year? Is this year 4 for him?
No, this is
year 3,
year 6.
Year 6.
He just finished his 5th year option.
Wow.
But that's my point. Like like Stetson Bennett or Hendon Hooker.
Yes.
Who obviously Stetson Bennett wins the national championship. Hendon Hooker has an incredible year before he tears his ACL. 25 years old, playing against a lot of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. So like you just once you get to the NFL. That doesn't matter at all.
It doesn't matter at all. And I think the second thing that you mentioned was you could be a 7th rounder, Mr. Irrelevant. Doesn't matter. You get your opportunity to ball. And a lot of the guys I've had on the pod recently, through Bring the Juice, they've gone to little ass colleges. They've gone to big D1s. Then they went to some D2.
Yeah.
Went undrafted, grinded their way on P Squad, got on some special teams, and now they've been on 53-man roster.
Well, why do you think so many guys over the last, 20 years from Fresno State have made it? Because the overwhelming majority of them have not had an opportunity, and a large percentage of guys from the program, right, are from Northern or Southern California.
Well, the Valley, yeah.
So, I'm encompassing that whole area.
Middle
so
California,
basically from Sac over to the Bay, all the way down to Bakersfield, LA, San Diego.
Yep.
Well, you don't think they would want to go to UCLA or USC or Oregon, but a lot of those guys don't get the offer.
Why do you think Fresno State's like 4-0 or 5-0 the last 5 times they played fucking UCLA?
Well, exactly. And I remember when I went there and we beat them, I remember Coach Hill, like that, to start that week, I think asked everyone to raise their hand how many people had an offer from UCLA.
Yeah.
And it was like Ryan Matthews, but he couldn't get in there academically. It was a very small list.
Right.
And that's where the programs, and Boise always was great at this under Pete.
Yeah.
And they've, they feels like they peaked a little bit, But,
I like to say so. I
have a lot of respect for the program.
I played at Fresno State, and I do as well. You have to put respect where it's due.
Because
and that's
they were always a lot like that, too. And they were even getting... Like when I was there, I'm sure when you played, and it feels like they've done this with Tedford and Coach Hill because those guys are great recruiters, is like they will steal a guy from Pac-12 schools, right? For the most part, Boise, when we played them, it was like we had more talent.
Yeah.
But it's like they got this one dude from North Dakota, they got this other guy from this little city in Washington.
Yep.
And then you play them, it's like, are we down 30 points here? And what the fuck is going on here? They were incredible.
Well-ran football program.
Yeah, and 100%. It's like, and football is a lot like that. Like for a long period of time, now the Patriots always had Tom, but the majority of guys on their team, they did not.
Look at their wide receivers over the years.
Exactly. Man. They had a lot of random DBs. Yeah. They had a lot of
Shout out Danny Woodhead.
Yeah, I mean, Logan's a good example. Now, Logan, was a really good player, right. Logan Mankins, but, they hung their hat on, like, being tougher than you, having this chip on their shoulder. And there's a balance to that, And I think, I think the Chiefs kind of have that going now, too. Like, you meet Travis Kelce, he doesn't walk in and act like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Clearly, Mahomes, like, their work ethic, and that's kind of what separates operate. That's what Alabama, they've had the best players, and they work like they're, like, on the come up.
Right.
Clearly, Kirby's done that at Georgia.
He saw
they're kicking everyone's ass.
That's what I'm saying. There's clearly some sort of a template.
He's been the only guy to basically copy and paste it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like there's a reason Nick Saban is like going to go down as like the John Wooden of football. People shouldn't be able to copy that.
No.
But Kirby is obviously, of all of his assistants, clearly just doing an incredible job because they dominate.
No, they're killing it. It's crazy because especially this year, everyone's talking about who's going to win the Natty, blah 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 blah. Georgia, without a doubt, was dominant the entire season. It wasn't even close. And again, Stetson Bennett, I know that he wasn't very highly sought after by a lot of people on their draft analysis. I don't know shit about that. That's your job, but the dude did win 2 natties at the end of the day. So you got to give him that.
And that's the thing, it's hard to separate college from pro, right?
Right.
Like Jake Haener, starting quarterback for Fresno State, goes ahead of Stetson Bennett.
By 1, yes.
But that's, because ultimately, if you ask people in the Saints, they clearly they could have drafted either.
Right.
And they had Jake Haener rated above him. So that's the hard part. Like, it's easy with the superstar players, right?
Yes.
This is Alabama or Georgia's best, Jalen Carter. Like, he's their best player. Honestly, Jalen Carter's been the best player on both teams. Right. The only other guy that's close to that is the dude from Napa, Brock Bowers, the tight end, who's just a fucking freak show.
He is a freak show.
But so it's like, those guys are easy. Like,
right.
But like, how do you differentiate? Because Stetson Bennett, for the most part, Jake just doesn't have, he beat UCLA last year. He got hurt against USC. But week in, week out, he's not playing Tennessee, Alabama.
It's different. Yeah. You're playing Nevadas
but you have to project, like, is he a more skilled player?
Sure.
He's, Jake's a little older, but Stetson's way older than Jake, couple years. Does he have a better arm? And that's the hard part, where you got to get to know the guy, what they're wired
character
like.
thing, all that.
Yeah, how much they love football, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. And it gets back to the sales thing. Some guys are better at reading people, but then there's an element of like, well, how do you, once you get to the NFL, who knows? It's just a different level. Some people just kind of crumble. Yeah. Or maybe they would have been fine like 5 years later in life, but they're not quite prepared for it at 23, 24, and some guys are.
Well, back to it's a ticking time bomb. And guess what? You're throwing in the shits. It's sink or swim, baby. Yeah. Nobody cares whether you need a learning curve or not. Now, granted, and you know this, considering you were in the actual locker room itself, and as well as your profession now, where if you're drafted let's say you got a receiver A and receiver B. Receiver A was drafted in the first round, right?
Yeah.
A team invested in him. They gave him a nice signing bonus. They're expecting him to be wide receiver 1. Receiver B is undrafted free agent. They each get 10 passes. If the guy who went undrafted drops a pass, it is extremely more detrimental to his future in that program compared to if the first rounder is dropping passes.
It doesn't matter for the first
round. It doesn't
rounder.
fucking matter at all. So
he could drop all 10 passes
but
that first year. He might not play like come Sunday,
right?
But he's not getting cut.
He's not getting cut. But I mean, I do believe that eventually you keep, and this is just maybe the way that I've thought about my athletic career, where I think there's a lot of young kids at home that think like this, where you keep making plays, you keep doing what you're supposed to do your fucking job pretty much. And this guy keeps kind of effing around in the corner. Maybe he's late to a few meetings. Maybe he doesn't show, he's late for curfew one night. Maybe he's missing his assignments one day. The OC says, get him the fuck out of here. Get this guy in here. Well, the undrafted free agent now all of a sudden knows his shit. He's catching the ball every time. How big is that string, you think, today in the NFL, especially where there's these bunko bucks going everywhere?
I think it's never been shorter.
Really?
Because there's unlimited money.
Yeah.
Back forever, it's like, well, the teams weren't making as much, so if I give a guy $10 million, $20 million, I'm going to write it out.
Yeah.
Now it's like teams pivot all the time. Carson Wentz is a good example. He got thrown to like, whatever. See you, buddy.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks now get kind of thrown, and they have the biggest salaries.
Yeah.
And Belichick forever was always the one willing to kind of move on quick. There's that famous video of like in a preseason game, Julian Edelman returns a punt. I don't know if he took it to the house. He might have, but it was a sweet punt return. And Belichick looks at Wes Welker, and he's like, you ever heard of Wally Pipp? And Wes is like, what are you talking about? And Bill kind of smiles at him. And then what happened? Julian took his job within a year. And Wes Welker went on to like still kick ass with Peyton Manning for the Denver Bowl. He was awesome. Like Wes Welker was, it wasn't like he was old and done. He was still really good.
Right.
But it's just like at any moment. Also in football, there are just more guys every year coming in. So every year, even if you're a quarterback, there's a guy coming to your team playing your position. And it's just like injuries happen at the highest amount in football.
Injuries,
so you could just miss a couple games. Well, what if you miss a couple games and that guy coming in is really good and your salary is really big? Maybe they don't get rid of you that year, but it's in their mind. And you got to like piece the puzzle together for the money. And like I'm telling you, this guy here, Kyler, the new administration, like the new GM, the new coach, he's got a torn ACL.
Yeah.
What if they suck so hard that they get the number 1 pick? Like Caleb Williams is the best. Like Kyler was an elite prospect.
Right.
Caleb is on a completely different universe than him as a player coming out of college.
Right.
So it's like, now you'd be like, well, they just gave Kyler all this money. Well, these people will try to convince you, like, let's just move on. Let's trade him. Let's eat some of this money. Let's get this guy. It'll happen that fast.
Is it because too, and
now he said himself, like, he has some question marks. Like, he can earn that trust back of, like, focus. Like, he also gets a fresh start with people. Right. So it works both ways.
Totally.
Sometimes it's like maybe you just mature. I've always said this, like, I matured a little later.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for these guys like Trevor Lawrence or Patrick Mahomes that are like locked in at 22, 23. Like my greatest maturation as a human being came like in my late 20s, early 30s in terms of like relative to like what those guys already have. So I respect the shit out of that. Not everyone, maybe it flips for Kyler and it's like, God, he's locked and loaded. Typically it doesn't, and typically at that level, like it can, just for a little bit, like maybe guys run around too much at night and it's slowing them down, like kind of hold back on the journey. There's a difference of like, do you either have the focus and the desire or do you not? Like that, I don't know if you can take that. Like that's a different level of maturation. I think a lot of people look back, I wish I would have. Well, it's like, do you? Because you didn't actually care about putting in the time because it's hard.
It's hard. It's not made for everybody.
It's not.
Well, I think anybody who you talk to will know guys in their locker room who have the talent, have the raw ability, the instinct even, but everyone has their vice in this life. And sometimes you give these big paychecks to guys and they don't know what the fuck to do with it. They too much free time on their hands, too much luxuries. Not saying it's a bad thing. Everyone's chasing the bag. We're chasing the fucking bag.
Yeah.
But how, and I mean, you said it best with Travis Kelce. Like,
I've always hated that term, by the way, because
chasing the bag.
Yeah, because there's no such thing as a bag. It's direct deposits, and we pay taxes on it. I would love the bag of cash. That just means you get to keep the cash. The bags are what they used to give out in the SEC before the NIL, and now all these guys getting NIL, they got to pay the tax. I'm fascinated when the first guy so-and-so owes the government $700,000 for the $4 million he's made. Like,
why have they
how's
not
that not
talked
going to
about
happen
that yet? Why have they not talked about that shit yet?
It feels inevitable, doesn't it? With some of these guys getting like, you think you just gave like the average 19-year-old, let's just say $1 million. He's like, yeah, I'm going to put away $400 for taxes.
We had Bobby Evans Jr. on the pod from the Rams a couple weeks ago, and we legit discussed how he got drafted to the Rams, and we discussed, my buddy Mike, who was co-hosting it with me, who's on the Falcons. We were talking, different tax brackets and how guys typically, you get drafted to the Cowboys. It's kind of a good thing. You're keeping more of your fucking paycheck.
Incredible.
Great paycheck.
Jacksonville, Miami.
But you're going to the Rams, San Francisco, things of that nature. All of a sudden, you're not keeping that whole bag. And I think a lot of guys' views on how they see the world change when they expect that $50,000 to hit and you get $50,000 versus, nope, now you're getting taxed on, and I don't even know how many ways anymore these days. And then, by the way, tax day comes around, you got a fat check to pay to the man. And we're so uneducated on it.
My dad used to always say everyone's a huge Democrat till they get their first paycheck. Because you look at it, and it could just be $500. The first time, and you're like, okay, I got $500. No, you don't. And once you get to those levels, even if it's like you're a practice squad guy and you're making $8,000 a week or whatever the number is.
Which is great money still.
100 rest of society, it's fantastic. But you start in your mind the first time and then you see it. You're like, what?
Yep.
And that's why I'm fascinated, like in the NIL thing, some of a car dealership, I'll just give you $500,000. They just cut you $500,000. You have to pay that.
Yeah.
You're not their W-2 employee. They're just paying you for a sponsorship.
Right.
Maybe those guys, I'm not rooting for them if you can get away with it, but it's like, something's going to happen.
Well, again, like I said with the Bobby Evans thing, we talked about how you don't really learn that. I don't know how your education system was growing up, but I never took a class that taught you how to pay taxes. I didn't even in my Fresno State education, which is the Harvard of the Central Valley. Don't get me wrong.
I've heard that, yeah.
But I didn't really even have hey, here's this sheet right here. This is what you got to do. This is when you're going to get taxed. This is how much, depending on. Yeah. You don't really ever get a clear fucking answer on that shit.
Well, that's why you
get zapped.
That's why everyone in business always says we need to start teaching more financial literacy. The problem, and I think this is true for me, and it sounds like you too. Until you go through it, it'd be kind of boring. I remember having some finance classes
Who gives a shit?
I don't care. And then you realize now I got Excel spreadsheets. It's you got a rental property. You're like, I thought I was actually making this, and after expenses, I'm in the red. But until it hits you, it's hard. It's why the classroom didn't do that much for me. I'm not an in the theory guy on a whiteboard. Yeah.
I need to be in the shits. I need to learn.
100%.
I'm the same fucking way.
Cal Poly, we learn by doing, man.
Man, fuck Cal Poly. All right, so let's finish with this. You got this Go Low podcast, golf.
Yeah.
How has that been zapped in? Do you just like to fucking golf and you'd like to chop it up about it? Are you trying to get into that industry? There's not a lot of shows I feel like discussing, I think especially I watched the Full Swing Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
What'd
you think?
I liked it from the fact that you got to kind of see a little bit more character behind these guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm new to golf, man. I finished playing. I got a pair of knockoff clubs from fucking Dick's Sporting Goods the day after Christmas 2 years ago. I'm trying. I'm hitting them straight. I'm drinking beers on the course. I'm learning. I love it now.
Yeah.
But watching it on TV 5 years ago, I'm like, this shit's boring as hell. Now I'm watching a guy flop a 60, hitting it 3 feet from the pin, and I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
That's an incredible shot.
Yeah. Best thing I had when I talked to Danny Woodhead. He compared warming up for the Super Bowl versus approaching the tee box the first time on his actual first professional.
Yeah. Trying to qualify the U.S. Open.
Right.
Yeah.
He was it's fucking nerve-wracking, man.
Yeah.
Or he also compared, I scored a Super Bowl.
You don't have any help. You know, it's just you and the club.
He's like, there's fucking people, man.
Yeah.
And then he compared, there is, scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl, that exhilaration of just like, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
To, again, hitting one from 120 out 2 feet from the pin. He's like, look at that shit, baby. Look at that shit, baby.
I always say, like, my relationship with golf is a lot different than football. I wasn't any good. I mean, I played in high school, but I was a tiny little guard. A bad athlete. Loved it though, because when I was in high school in like 02, 03, golf wasn't that cool. Like Tiger was really getting big, but like golf is so much different now. Like everyone in pro sports, basketball, football, they like playing it.
Right.
Everybody does, and it's just. I played golf growing up, and it's like the only sport I could play where I was pretty good.
Right.
And then when we started doing this, the golf consumer, football's huge. My football podcast does really well. We got a lot of people listening. It's the biggest sport in America. You know, it's not gonna be. Golf is much more niche, but the household income of people that play is dramatically higher than all the other sports.
I can see that.
So it's why the businesses, when you turn on a golf, what do you see? Mercedes, Rolex. Yep. It's a different thing. It's a little like F1 racing. So it's like you can develop a business around there. It's just been a kind of, I don't know exactly what I want to do beside the podcast. I watch all these tournaments. I gamble on golf. I play a lot of golf. Mm-hmm. So it's a natural, like,
it's not even work for you.
I enjoy it. It's honestly more of a passion project that I know can go somewhere, where the football thing, and it just comes in. And a lot of my listeners, a lot of people started playing golf over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And they developed it. And a lot of former athletes, or just guys that like, I played high school football, I played high school baseball, I'd never played golf. I started playing in 2020, and I kind of like it. And now and like you say, once you start playing, why do we all watch football? Because so many of us played, even if you didn't play in high school, you've played football at some point in time, so you know, or baseball or whatever. It's why basketball, everyone's played basketball. It's why people watch those sports. Well, the more and more people play golf, you go, Jesus, how'd the guy just hit that 3-wood 270 yards?
You could relate to that shit. You know the feeling he has in his gut.
You're like, how that bunker shot, I can't get it. That's incredible.
Right.
And it's like everyone can do it. And it's the other thing is like, you played college football. Once college, you're never going to play football again.
No, it's done.
You can play golf probably until like you're 70, 75, 80.
That's awesome.
You know, and that's tennis, like, probably not. You can't play to like if your knee starts going, right? You can't pick up you couldn't pay me to play pickup basketball. I can't afford to tear my Achilles. I don't want to be on crutches.
I'm past that shit.
Yeah, but it's like you can play golf and you get out in the sun. It gives you something to do.
Yep.
It's besides like working out, it's like the only hobby I have. I'm not a big, like my brother's a hunter. Never really been that, it's cold. You got to get up early. I will get up early for golf though. I'll get up early for golf.
6:10 tee time. You're fucking in there.
I'll fucking be there, bro. And you have a beer by
couple
like 6:30.
of Coors Lights by then?
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right, last thing. I got to ask, because this is what you do. What's your hottest take leading into this next upcoming NFL season?
That Trey Lance will not be on the 49ers come week 1.
Really?
Yeah, I think Sam Darnold
takes the backup role.
Because Purdy's hurt right now, so technically he's not going to practice, at least for the next couple months, probably the beginning of training camp. I think Darnold beats out Trey Lance. And if Purdy, even if he's like, they have to ease him back and maybe he can be the backup, they don't want to start him right away, that Sam Darnold is a starting quarterback. Now, if Purdy's healthy, he'll be the starting quarterback, but like Sam will beat out Trey, and then because of what they drafted, they won't just keep Trey on the team. They'll just give him away for like a 7th round pick, some team that like, hey, we'll give this guy a trial run for a year. We're going to suck anyway type deal.
Right.
But so within a couple years of them trading all those picks for him, 2 years later, he's off the team. And again, like people, like
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think he's any good.
He's got bring the juice hats, so I like Trey Lance.
People like him, and that's the thing. Like this is the hard part about my job.
It's not personal.
Yeah, it's not. And sometimes if a guy's a bad guy, I don't really care. But like this is not. Sometimes
no, it's not
you
personal.
get to the level. It's like in golf. Like you can either break par or you can't. Like
right.
in football, like you can either get this done or you're not. Like a ton of like great guys, your friends, like get cut and they're out of the league.
Yeah.
Now he's better than that, but like it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And I just don't think he's beating out Sam Darnold. You know,
Heard it here first, baby. Hot take.
I just think he's not beating out Sam Darnold. And the one thing is, I think he's got an uphill battle of like the guys on the team that for whatever reason they're like Christian knows Sam. They're already hanging out at the Warriors game with George.
I know.
Like
I know.
Type, you know the way that's not random. Like they're not just like they kind of stick. Obviously, you like guys who you like, whether they can play or not if they're on your team.
Right.
But I think that's a little different. Like I think Christian's telling people. And these aren't just random players. Like these are the best players in the league rolling with them.
Yeah.
And it's just I saw it last year with Jimmy. The training camp was going, and the rumors got out like I don't know if we're gonna be able to win games.
I knew that shit was gonna happen
Jimmy.
too.
Why? Because the guys on the team thought like we're good enough to win the whole thing. We need a capable quarterback. We don't need Brady, or we would ideally like a guy like that. But we just need a guy. It's why once Brock Purdy came in, they fucking loved him.
Yeah. Did his job.
A little better. Brock Purdy can play a little bit.
Brock Purdy's a dog.
Baller.
Fucking dog.
I told Jake Hayner, man, the success of Purdy.
Yeah.
If it's not for Brock, in Stetson too. Like I don't know if either one of those guys go in the 4th round.
Really?
Smaller guy. Like historically, those type guys go Purdy 6th, 7th round.
Right.
But like you saw last year, like okay, this guy can just come in and play.
They're looking for
that.
the next
That is
offer.
worth like a 4th round pick.
Right.
Hell, if Jake Hayner or Stetson Bennett becomes like what Brock Purdy is, that guy's worth a 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
You know, because the quarterback position is so valuable. If you got a sweet backup quarterback,
It's nice.
didn't you play on a team where the quarterback got hurt and the team was in shambles? You play on one of those teams?
We had a couple of those teams.
Yeah. Because it happened this year at Fresno State. He got hurt in a couple games. Like they lost to UConn. It was the biggest spread loss of the season, right?
Yeah.
Weren't they like a 45-point underdog or something?
31 or something like that.
Would they have lost that game with Jake?
No, probably not.
No chance.
It's tough.
Even though it
It's
probably
tough.
would have been a weird game, long flight, whatever.
Long
but-
flight, weird elements. I know there were some things internally that definitely like influenced it, but I know what you mean. And also sometimes the quarterback too, when you have a team where
Is that guy the quarterback this year on Fresno State?
still in a shootout between him and a transfer.
Are they going to
guy.
be good?
Yeah.
You think so?
My brothers are on the team. They're going to be fucking great. Joe.
They feel good about the squad?
They'll be good.
A lot of transfers?
You know what? They got a lot of young guys who got their bearings last year. Their schedule's manageable. I think they'll fuck around and be back in the Mountain West Championship this year.
Who calls the plays?
Pat McCann,
They lost Kellen Moore's brother, huh?
Kirby, went to Missouri.
Stud.
My guy.
The Moore family. I remember watching him when I was at Fresno State. Kellen was a quarterback, and it was like, listen, I'm not acting like this guy's Peyton Manning. He's small or whatever, but he was so good. He was the best college player I've ever seen. He was unstoppable, just slinging that left-hander. Woo.
Yeah,
And their offensive coordinator, I mean, Chris was just talk about being in his bag. I mean, they were just all their coaches were like Brian Harsin. They had all those Boise guys that went around. Those were all the assistants with Pete leading it, and they had Kellen be as a quarterback, and all these random dudes that ended up playing the NFL, and they just kicked everyone's ass.
I know. I fucking hate Boise, but goddamn,
That was their best team, the one that Kaepernick beat in Nevada in like 2011. And Kaepernick in college was fucking incredible too. The Mountain West is hard, you know?
Hey, man.
Still is.
Okay, Mountain West versus Pac-12.
I think as a whole, top to bottom, and definitely at the top, you know, like Utah, Oregon. If you just play them every single week, they're better.
Play them every week.
The one-off situation, the one thing that's different is like Fresno or Boise. If they get a shot at Oregon or UCLA or UCLA, actually it's better now. The last couple of years they were better this year than they were last year.
Okay,
but like it's like a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
But like every single week when you're in a bigger conference, it's like we're playing Utah, we're playing Oregon, we're playing Oregon State. It's just like, but like when you play last year, Oregon State, that game, which was incredible, and Oregon State was good.
Yeah.
It's a really big deal for the Fresno State players because a lot of those guys,
They were looked over by.
you didn't even give me a look.
Right.
But like when you do that, are they just as good as like Washington State or some of these? Of course.
Right.
But like
Some of when Utah's on, it's tough.
Or now what USC's building with Lincoln and getting these transfers, and even Oregon. Like if you played Oregon, that game that was close 2 years ago,
right?
You know, if Fresno plays them 10 times, they're more likely to probably go 2-8 than 6-4 or 5-5. I would say, just because the top to bottom talent on that team is just much larger. Like they just have better players as backups.
So where do you think? Again, I'm pretty Fresno State heavy on this pod following wise. Where do you think Fresno State ends up? You think they stay in the Mountain West, go Big 12, go Pac-12?
Well, I think it depends. Does the Pac-12 disappear? Because to me, if Oregon and Washington were ever to join the Big 10,
Oregon and Washington to the Big 10. You don't think Utah would go? Utah would go Big 12?
Yeah, then I think you would kind of get some
weird makeshift
Then you could
shit.
potentially get like a Fresno Boise with like Utah, maybe Arizona State, and create the Big 12, some connection, right?
Yeah.
Because if Oregon and Washington leave, the Pac-12's done. It's just they're hanging by a thread now. Like losing UCLA and USC is a big deal.
I hate that.
I know it sucks.
I hate it.
It sucks, but it is what it is. No different. I love the Big 12, but you lose Oklahoma and Texas, and that's a bigger blow for the Big 12, right? Because
You think that's a bigger blow for the Big 12?
well, in the sense that Oklahoma and Texas just carry the conference football wise.
Yeah.
Just even though Texas has kind of been shitty, their brand, it's just such an important television product.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm not talking necessarily wins and losses. This is about
Red Bull rivalry.
This is about
Just
television dollars.
Yeah.
You know, like Oregon, they're a big TV product. So
Right.
if you lose them, it just what do you do? You can't just have Utah play Oregon State every week.
No, I know.
You could just maybe create the Mountain West into one thing. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. It's all about the money, baby.
It's
all
the only thing
about
that
the
matters.
money.
It's not because
It's not even wins, losses.
It has nothing to do with that.
anymore.
UCLA's been terrible at football.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it does. USC has had an awful decade.
I know.
Now it changed once they got Lincoln. It changed.
Yeah, it'll probably continue to.
Yeah, they're going to be. I mean, I just saw they got a dude from a Georgia transfer defensive lineman. I think a corner from Alabama. I've always said Lincoln's offense is never going to be an issue. It's going to be the reason Pete won national championships at USC. Defense. Recruited the SEC defense.
You can't win a shootout every game.
No. Well, you look at the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, you got to play defense.
I love it. Anything you want to say before I wrap it up?
Oh, thanks for having me on, bro.
Dude, this was fun. Guys, John Middlekauff, appreciate you. Check out his podcast. We're going to tag you to a bunch of shit.
Thanks, man.
Get your piss hot. Be sure to subscribe, leave 5 stars, buy some merch, have yourself a beer, and bring the juice, baby.